I thought it was excellent. I thought Professor Alam spoke in a very interesting way about developments in India that crossed a lot of boundaries in explaining what he thought about the ways in which the Indian state has dealt with all the issues that come up with a very diverse community, which is what India is. I was particularly interested because I used to work in India, and I spent many years, in fact, going back and forth in the 1985 through to the mid-90s. But I actually haven't been back in India since 1998. And so it was an opportunity for me to hear somebody speak about what's happened since Modi became President of India. And there was a lot of discussion when he was first elected about all the things that Professor Alam spoke about, which was the Hindi community becoming dominant politically and what that might mean for India. And so the thing I've taken away from his talk today was that he was able to say, this hasn't been a terrible thing in the way that those of us who were working in India in the 90s feared that it might be. He was able to show the way in which India has negotiated its very diverse community across religions, across castes, across the different states of India. He was able to say that he finds many optimistic things about how the Indian state has always handled that. And I personally found that uplifting. I come from a very different perspective, a political economy perspective, and I've thought about this politically rather than in a cultural way. And again, I found his talk really very interesting from that perspective as well. I came to know Kathy here, who was who introduced the talk today, and her husband Alan Knight. Yes, and Alan got very involved in Affinity, and through knowing Alan and Kathy, both myself and my partner Gavin Kitching have been coming to the talks. And what I found is you were inviting people that I'd actually known when I was teaching at the University of Sydney. Tim Thumasani, for example, was a student of mine. Devleena Ghosh, who today was speaking with Professor Alam, I used to know many years ago. So I think Affinity is doing an extremely good job at finding people, and I've been very impressed by the diversity of the speakers that you've brought to these events. I think you're obviously doing a very good job, and I think I'd find it hard to think of anybody just off the top of my head that would be any better than the people that you're talking about. I also like the diversity of the program that's being developed both this year and next year, and moving into an area to do, say, cooking classes, because you're promoting community contacts by doing those sorts of things. So I think an academic approach, a very high-profile approach. You've got good political speakers, you've got good academics, you've got good people who are doing journalists. That you have a whole range of people. So I think both Ahmed and Shemen are already doing an extraordinary job in building up this organisation, and I just hope that I can contribute something myself from the work that I've been doing. So.